In this video, I'm going to share with you how I sketchnoted an online course about community design. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Verbal to Visual. I'm your host, Doug Neill, and a couple of weeks ago, I finished up an online course about community design put on by the folks who designed the platform that I now use for my online courses and community, a platform called Mighty Networks. And I wanted to share my experience sketchnoting that course because, one, I really enjoyed it, the overall experience, and also because I don't think I've ever shared a personal case study of working through an entire online course while sketchnoting it. So as I share my sketch notes today, you will learn a little bit about community design. I'll be sharing some of the things that I learned, but likely what's more helpful for fellow sketchnoters is looking at the general experience of how to make the most of an online course that you take. And in this case, how to participate actively in that course by sketchnoting it. So this community design masterclass was broken up into 6 different weeks. Each week had a live hour-long instructional session in addition to a couple of office hours and some specific tasks to take on each week. I entered the course kind of about midway through the live delivery of it. So most of the sketch notes that I took were from watching the recordings, which I enjoyed because it did give me that opportunity to pause the lesson if I wanted to spend a little bit more time coming up with a specific visual, which is what I did here with these 4 things that successful communities have in common. And the phrase that kind of stuck with me throughout and that resonated with me, the overarching goal being to create a community where people master something interesting together. And specifically, I like those 3 pieces of mastering something interesting together. For me, the idea of mastering a new skill is a very appealing thing to work toward. And the interesting thing that I'm helping folks master is the skill of sketchnoting. And within the new learning community that I've set up within a Mighty Network, thanks to this course, is where we can do that together. And the 5 major components of community design that we explored throughout this masterclass were first identifying a big purpose, then imagining what the year in the life of your community looks like, breaking that down into monthly themes and a weekly calendar, and then daily actions. So I really appreciated that, zooming out and zooming in, identifying why it is that your community is gathering in the first place, the big purpose that you're working toward, what a year of transformation actually looks like, and then nailing down all the way to the specific activities that you do on a daily basis so that you know the actual steps it will take to build that mastery. And it was helpful to create early on a single sentence to identify that big purpose. In my case, you saw that in the last video that I shared about the verbal to visual community that I just relaunched, and how the purpose of that community is to bring together lifelong learners and makers who want to master the skill of sketchnoting in order to move from surface level to deep learning, solve complex problems efficiently and effectively, and tell stories in a memorable and impactful way. So identifying that North Star was very helpful. And what you can see that I did here at the end of each week's lesson was create a very specific checklist of the follow-up actions that I needed to do to make sure that I got the most out of this learning experience. So that was one consistent element that I carried with me throughout my sketch notes of this course. Part 2 was a deep dive into a year in the life of your community, identifying the results that you'd like your members to achieve, some results that you would like to see in a year's time, and then identifying monthly themes so that you know what to focus on each month in order to work toward those specific results. And what was particularly helpful for me in this part was identifying a couple of member results that I hope folks reach by the end of a year spent within this community. The first was getting folks to a point where they can sketchnote with confidence in a way that supports their personal or professional goals. And the second was feeling more engaged in their work or personal life and feeling better about the contributions that they're making there because of how they're weaving sketchnoting in. And again, here you can see the check boxes for the specific tasks as a follow-up to part 2. I should note that I also used Evernote as a text-only note-taking tool to supplement the sketch notes that I took here. So this was a place for me to create some visual summaries of the lessons each week. But for many of the follow-up activities, it was helpful to hop into something like Evernote to respond, write out my thoughts, and do the kind of first draft responses to a bunch of the challenges that I just mentioned. So that's something that you might keep in mind if you know you want to sketch some things out, but you also might find it handy to have a more text-based note-taking tool to supplement your sketches. In week 3, the focus was on creating a weekly calendar, identifying a consistent set of things that you do a few times a week that the members of your community can come to know are part of the process. So I decided on Mondays as a day for me to share a question of the week, something to help folks get their gears turning about that month's theme that they can fairly quickly respond to and see other responses. On Wednesdays, I share a sketchnoting prompt, a specific thing that encourages folks to break out pen and paper and sketch something out, snap a quick photo, and share that within the community. That gives folks the opportunity to steal specific sketchnoting techniques when they see something they like that another community member presented. Then on Fridays, I put together a community roundup, a recap of some of the most engaging posts, engaging shares from the past week. And one of the overarching themes throughout this entire community design masterclass, and within this part in particular, is how much of the experience is about what members contribute, not what you as the host do. So that takes off some of the pressure that I felt before taking this course around what it means to be a good host, and how my role is more about creating the structure that allows for other community members to contribute in meaningful ways, learn from each other, and build relationships with each other, which I do feel is a strength of the Mighty Networks platform. I got to see that platform while I was going through this course, which is what convinced me to switch over to it myself for the courses and community that I run at Verbal to Visual. Then we dove into specific daily actions while putting together a plan for the first 90 days. Another exciting feature of Mighty Networks is the different type of polls that you can create: multiple choice polls, hot cold polls, and percentage polls. And it was as a follow-up to this lesson that I had the first opportunity to create kind of a sketchnote summary of my plan for the first 90 days of the community I launched, which looked like this. You can see my big purpose written and sketched out there, the weekly calendar that I've already touched on, with additional pieces there for new podcast episodes on Tuesday and new videos like these on Thursday. And you can also see the first 3 monthly themes that I've identified for my community: build your visual vocabulary, mind maps and flowcharts, then handwritten fonts, and some of the specific questions and polls and prompts that I will be sharing each of those months. So it was, of course, helpful for me to put together that overall summary of my 90-day plan. To create that, I used an iPad Pro and Apple Pencil with the app Procreate. More info on that whole process within my new course, Digital Sketchnoting. But in addition to that personal benefit of creating that sketch, that was also something that I could share within the online course environment. And I think that's when I was starting to kind of catch up with the live lessons that were happening each week. So that made it fun to be able to go in and share something within that community and start to build a little bit of a connection with the instructors and other folks taking the same course. I tend to be someone who is more of a lurker in those types of online learning experiences, doing the work myself on my own, but maybe not participating in that active sort of way. But I think sketchnoting provides kind of a nice bridge for that type of interaction. So I enjoyed being able to share my work in that way. Part 5 was all about how you might create some paid programs with your community or courses. And here are some really rough notes that I took during a live office hour session, where I actually asked a question as I was figuring out how to structure my Mighty Network, and jotted down these quick notes, nothing more than short phrases, lines, and arrows. So these notes aren't pretty, but they served their purpose. Then part 6 was all about sharing and growing your community. And what I appreciated here was the encouragement to create a system for growth so that you can be intentional about about growing your community over time, which again takes some pressure off when you're just getting started with your community. And in response to this lesson, I created another sketch note, this time summarizing my overall launch plan. Here's what that one looked like. You might notice that we're right in the middle of it. About a week ago, I shared a video called The Future of Verbal to Visual, announcing the transition to this new learning platform. And you can see a little bit about what's coming up next. In my next video here, I'm actually gonna give a pretty comprehensive tour of the Mighty network that I've set up to show you inside what my learning community looks like. And much like the previous sketch note that I created in that form, that was a valuable thing personally for me to put together as I was planning out how this 2-week span would go, but then it was also something fun to share within the course environment, to share with folks how I was applying the ideas we just learned about, and also as an opportunity to get some feedback for folks to maybe say, oh, try this here before you do that, or at this stage, make sure you do this. I think it's those types of helpful suggestions that you open yourself up to when you share the work that you do while going through an online course. By the way, you might recognize this notebook here. It's the Sketchnote Idea Book, co-created by Mike Rohde. So if you're looking for a way to get more out of the online courses that you're signing up for, and also interact more with the other folks that are taking or teaching that course, then I hope this little case study of how I sketchnoted a recent course helps give you some ideas. And the thing I always like to emphasize is that your notes don't have to be pretty. Some of those sketches probably looked okay, others were messy and done pretty quickly, but what's important isn't how they look. It's the role that they play in helping you put into practice the ideas that you're learning. So remember to keep that focus in mind. If you'd like to learn more about the new online learning platform that I've been referencing, Mighty Networks, I've shared a link to that down below. And if you'd like to join my online learning community to help you develop your sketchnoting skills and work toward mastery, then I've also linked to that down below as well. I encourage you to check it out and consider joining us. And be sure to check out next week's video where I will give a tour of what it looks like within Verbal to Visual's Mighty Network. The doors have only been open for about a week now, but there's already some exciting activity there, and I can't wait to show you what we've got going on. So good luck making the most of the next online course that you sign up for, and I look forward to chatting with you again next time. Till then.